was the last time you have been somewhere haunted? Did you have an encounter there? There are tons of haunted locations all around. Find out where and prepare yourselves for the experiences others have had. Make sure the lights are off and join us for Haunted Locations in 60 minutes.
Hello, everybody. Welcome
Hello.
to WLTK-DB, The Talk. I am Nick Sarlo, along with
Diana Henry.
Diana, and our special guest tonight is Ronnie D. from Old South Pittsburg Hospital in how do I say this? Is it
Historic Harriman Hospital?
Historic Harriman Hospital. Perfect.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody, to our brand new show, Haunted Locations in 60 Minutes. We're really excited to bring you this show, and it's all about haunted locations. So with that, we will be bringing you guys to a whole bunch of different haunted locations all around. And tonight, we will be traveling to Tennessee, where Old South Pittsburg Hospital is, and with our special guest, Ronnie D.
Yeah, thanks for having me on tonight, guys.
Absolutely. Ronnie, what is Old South Pittsburg Hospital?
South Pittsburg Hospital is a hospital that was actually born in the early 50s, actually 58, and a bunch of expansions put on it, closed down in the late 90s. It was a full service hospital, having everything from emergency rooms to ORs to, mental facilities, physical rehab, pretty much everything. So it was a well-rounded kind of rural hospital that's been around for quite some time. And lots of stories of the building being actually active when the hospital is actually still open.
Okay. Now Diana and me, we were both doing some research. So I mean, the hospital was founded in 1959, right?
It opened in 1959. They broke ground in 1958. It took them about a year to open the building.
Okay.
And it was actually born from 3 local doctors. A couple of them lived in Atlanta. A couple of them lived here in Tennessee. But they were the 3 that actually got the building going.
Okay. And then also too, so it's a pretty big building from what I've seen and done some research. It's about what, 68,000 feet or a little bit more now?
Yeah, 68,000 square feet. So
Okay.
its final number was 68,000 square feet. The last addition they put on was the 3rd floor, the ominous 3rd floor, which faces Holly Street. So yeah. It's kind of a very deceiving building because when you pull up, all you see is kind of the 3-story building in the front. You don't realize that it goes so far in the back, which is where the Tri-City Clinic is. And the actual original hospital is actually set behind the new addition.
Okay. Wow. Diana, do you want to add anything or?
Yeah, during my research, I found out that it was original Chiaka Native American tribe land, and during the Civil War, the Chiaka tribe let the Union soldiers store things on the land. Well, it was gone ahead and it was infiltrated by the Confederate soldiers. And when that happened, they actually killed the entire tribe and the soldiers and stuff and officers that were on that land.
Yeah,
So-
and unfortunately, that isn't necessarily true. When we did the research as well, there's no documented where the actual hospital sits itself.
Mhm.
There actually was what was called South Pittsburgh Landing, which was quite a few miles down the road. And that's actually where we think a lot of that actually took place. The Tennessee River is about a quarter of a mile from us, south from us. But when we did the research and we actually talked to the historian here in town, they couldn't deny or confirm whether the actual hospital property, that actually happened on. There were a lot of rumors and stuff like that. When we tried to get to the bottom of it, when they actually dug up for the hospital, because we're actually built into the side of the mountain, they didn't find anything, in terms of bodies or equipment or anything like that. Like I said, it's really hard to prove because the history is kind of, in this area, it's kind of, like I said, it's just kind of hard to find. But there were, obviously the Indians, as well as a lot of the Confederate and Union soldiers, used this area to travel through. Being next to the Tennessee River, it was a main thoroughfare to get from one location to the other into different battlefields.
Okay. Now, I did read, there's a natural spring that runs underneath, right?
When we pulled the geological report, that was one of the rumors, and whether or not it doesn't show up on the geological report. So it's really, really hard to, once again, tell whether that's true or not. Now, one of the things I can tell you is because we're on the backside of the mountain, there's a lot of irrigation that they put in underneath the hospital, which we're working on right now. But yeah, there's a lot of water flow because we're on the side of the mountain. So when they put the hospital down, they had to obviously figure out a way to get the water from the mountain down to the river. So there is definitely water movement under the building, and you can tell because of the locations that they put a lot of the drainage. But in terms of the natural spring, once again, the geological report doesn't show that. We had a group come out who did a study on that, and once again, wasn't confirmed nor denied. It's really hard to say. The history of South Pittsburg Hospital is really challenging because the old owners who owned it prior to us were running with a lot of things that they heard and just kind of urban legend. We tried to get to a lot of the bottom of it, and unfortunately, because the old owners were so, like a good example, and I'll put this out here, they started rumors about illegal abortions and this stuff that were happening in the hospital. Well, the problem is when you have a tight-knit community like South Pittsburgh, and you got somebody running around telling people stuff like this, you shut down. Like, people didn't want to work with them. And when we talked to the Historical Society, when I bought the building, they were really hush. Like, we went in and we're like, no, we want to know the history. And like, oh, here we go again. But we really, really wanted to find out what the truth and what the legends were, so that we could straighten it up, because there were a lot of really great people that worked in this building. You have 4 doctors, like I said, that worked here for a very long period of time, who, their whole life's work were here. And there were some scandals that we know about that took place. All small towns have them. But in terms of the healthcare, this building was probably second to none in terms of everything. And really, the only reason why it shut down, to be honest with you, is because rural hospitals don't have a very long period of time to stay financially, whatever you call that, positive. And this building fell to that. You had a building that had, basically, we have 2 OR rooms, and you have a huge community. Well, a lot of times when there was an emergency, you didn't have enough facility to maintain, the healthcare for the area. So they opened Park Ridge, which is right down the road, in Kimball, which is now closed as well too, or closing. I think the emergency room is still open. But that's primarily the reason why the building closed. It wasn't because of malpractice. It wasn't because they got in trouble legally. It was really 100% financial. Okay,
yeah, it's funny that you say that, because Diana and me, we were trying to figure that out too. Like, why did Old South shut down? But no, that makes sense, especially with, financially and all that, and being in kind of a smaller type town.
Yeah, Tennessee is really, I'm from Chicago. Everybody knows that. I'm up where you guys are from. It's really kind of unique. Tennessee and like the southern states, they seem to put like a hospital like in all these tiny little towns. And, we looked at another hospital. I won't give a name, but we looked at another hospital, and we actually talked to the administrator of the hospital. And one of the reasons why the hospital went under was because everybody knows everybody. So the problem was somebody went in for major surgery, and they had a $150,000 bill and couldn't afford it. So Billy Joe Bob would come and say, here's 20, here's 20. Well, because they were all friends, the billing director would be like, oh, I'll take the 20 and we'll put it towards your account. Well, when you're having that kind of medical, you can't survive on a payment from Billy Joe for $20 here. And, you can't do that. And a lot of the people in Tennessee at that point in time when these hospitals were around weren't covered. So a lot of this was coming out of their own pockets. And like I said, it was kind of a friend of a friend of a friend is, well, my friend works at this hospital and I can give him 100 here. And well, you can't pay bills that way. And a lot of times these hospitals end up closing down, that because they just financially can't keep going with that.
Right. Now, Did the hospital close down? What, it was 1998, I think I read.
So they transitioned. It was kind of 1998 to 1999. The last of the patients kind of left in the late 1998s, and then they tried to do like a drug rehabilitation center here. And once again, that kind of fell flat because of funding. And then the last patient was removed in 1999. And that was actually a drug and rehabilitation center. So they removed those people and took them to, I want to say Chattanooga, I think is what I was told, is they moved them out over to Chattanooga.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything, Diana?
I don't know.
Honestly, it's really challenging. I mean, in terms of getting the history, it's been a challenge. I mean, we own the Harriman Hospital now in Harriman, Tennessee, and once again, getting people to talk about certain situations, they just don't want to.
Right.
A lot of it just has to do with, you know what, and I get it. A lot of these doctors and nurses and people who have worked in these buildings, their whole life was here. You know what I mean? And sometimes they get hurt feelings because, you know, they didn't want to leave, but the building had no choice but to close down. So, you know, you put 20, 30 years in a building, and then at the end of the day, they're like, oh, today's your last day of work. You know, and there's some hurt feelings there.
Right.
And, you know, and then we're in a field where a lot of people don't believe in what we do. You know, so once again, we're in the Bible Belt, getting people to talk about ghosts and that kind of thing and spirits. A lot of people don't want to believe what we're into. And
Right.
I saw the dog move behind your head. I'm like, what the heck is that?
Oh.
Sorry, it's my ghost.
So, you know, it's kind of a challenge. And O has been a little bit better. O's only been closed for about 13 years. So we have a couple nurses, as well as an administrative assistant who worked at the hospital who's actually on our staff. So it's a little kind of a liaison between the people who work there and us, because they know the direction that we're going, and we're trying to keep that legacy alive. It's not really about, you know, what the old owners did at Old South Pittsburgh was making stuff up to make the building even more, you know, haunted or eerie. I mean, you guys have been to South Pittsburgh. It's eerie enough. I don't have to make up stories. O's following the same footprints. I mean, I don't have to make up stories. People come in and they get what they're looking for. So
I mean, just looking behind you right now, it's like, it's terrifying, because I don't know if something's going to pop out or not. Because for those watching, he is at Old South Pittsburgh right now.
Yeah, I'm at the second floor nurses station, where if you actually, and I always do this backward, but if you can see that door that's right behind me, I'll point it out. And this is verified. There was a nurse that her name was Betty. She passed away here. She was a lady of color. She was a little on the heavy set. She actually died in that room right behind us of a heart attack. And the reason why they had a hard time was she actually, when she collapsed in that bathroom back there, she actually wedged herself between the door and the toilet. They couldn't get in. So the poor lady had a heart attack. She ended up passing away in the building, and she's said to be here quite frequently. We'll get EVPs from her. We'll get chuckles from her. Every once in a while, we'll get a laugh from her. And yeah, but right behind us. So keep your eye back there, guys.
Yeah, right.
Let's see.
Because like I said, I'm watching, I'm waiting for something to pop out.
Is there a little guy, a toddler called Buddy on that floor too?
Well, Buddy's kind of all over the place. Buddy, and once again, it's kind of an urban legend, which is really cool. But I will tell you, we have a gentleman, if anybody's ever watched that Alaska show, gosh, I can't remember what the guy's name, Mike, I think it's Mike something. Mike does a lot of research. And him and I were talking, and one of the kind of urban legends that every hospital in the South seems to have is a little boy picking up worms and putting them in their pocket, and they're actually copperheads. Well, it's really, really funny. Well, it's not funny. I should take that back. It's just funny that the urban legend is kind of really, well, he actually tracked it down and the person's name and everything, and that actually happened in this hospital. So that urban legend that a lot of the other hospitals are utilizing with Buddy and the Copperheads was actually took place here. So he was out, he was in the field, he was collecting worms. So he thought he had put them in his pocket. And I guess when he reached in, he got bit by Copperheads and ended up passing away here. Wow. And his medical records, I shouldn't say his medical records because those are sealed, but his obituary records, Mike actually found. And it was actually really neat. He actually sent them to me and he was like, check this out. And it says his name and it says, you know, died of snake bite. So it's actually kind of unique. I mean, once again, it's trauma. It's really sad, but it's neat that we're able to back up some of the paranormal evidence that we're getting in the building. with something that actually had passed away, or with somebody who had actually passed away.
Right.
So,
Oh yeah, I mean, now that you think, because for Tennessee, you guys do get a lot of copperhead snakes out there, right? I take it.
oh, and I am deathly afraid of snakes. So I'm with.
So am
I don't do snakes. I don't do
hate
spiders. When I'm mowing the lawn, I'm like, yeah, not a fan.
I 100%.
Don't blame me there.
Have you guys ever found any snakes inside the hospital?
No, thank goodness. The building's actually pretty tight. There's not a lot of drafty rooms or anything like that. Plus, we're kind of surrounded we have a lot of asphalt. So the snakes don't really like to travel across asphalt. It's very uncomfortable for them. So luckily, this hospital really doesn't have that issue. And usually like I said, they just don't like this area, I guess. Now, not going to lie to you, we have I forgot what those little spiders are with the heart on the bottom of them, the red heart.
Is it the Black Widow?
Black Widows. Now, I have seen Black Widows back there. And one other thing that was really kind of funny is we own the property across the street, and we were mowing the property. We all got chased down by a little field mouse. So now field mice to my scare. He was literally like chasing us down. It was kind of frightening. So.
No, thanks. See, spiders, snakes, and dolls. I don't do those.
Either.
Nope.
And humans are coming on that list real quick now too. I'm more comfortable like
Yes.
hanging out in the house. It's really kind of neat because being here, well, today is a good example. So we just planted a bunch of evergreens out front. The FedEx guy, I guess, walks up to the front door, and I was inside doing some other work, and we got a Ring doorbell up front. So I go running downstairs, and they literally didn't want to come to the front door. And I was like, what's wrong, guys? So they were kind of like on the steps. I'm like, what's wrong? He goes, we're not going anywhere near that place. We've heard about this place. And I'm like, what's wrong? Just there's spirits in there. There's ghosts in there. And I'm like, yeah, there are. And so it was really, really kind of funny because even the reputation of the buildings got to the FedEx drivers. So it was kind of funny. So I'm like, come on in. So they kind of inched their way into the foyer, took a couple of pictures. And I will tell you, I've never seen a FedEx van leave a parking lot as quick as they did. But it's kind of neat, like you said, that even like the locals, like the FedEx drivers and everything, know of the building and of the hauntings and everything that goes on here. So it's a pretty storied building.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it definitely seems like it. We're still planning on taking a trip down there at some point. And Greg on our team, he has been there plenty of times. Along with his other team in Chicago. Now, why do you think the building is so active?
It's really funny. I think that the most active buildings you're ever going to be in are hospitals. And this is kind of a theory of mine, is if you want to think about it, this is the only building anywhere across the world, doesn't matter where you go, that everything in this building happens from life to death and everything in between. So think about the trauma, think about the happiness, think about the sadness, think about everything that goes on in these walls. And what's nice about this building or any of the buildings like this is that they're full service hospitals. So you're talking about trauma from car accidents. You're talking about trauma from everything. You're also talking about, people coming in the happiest moment of their lives, giving birth to somebody.
Right.
And then maybe many 15, 20, 30, 40 years later, coming back and actually passing away at the same place they gave birth to or birth in. So you've got this building that is just seeing so many different feelings, from good to bad to sad and everything. Well, as paranormal investigators, we know that energy is never created and it's never lost, right? So where is it? It's all in these walls. Mm-hmm. So all that year. So now you're talking about a building that's been standing here for 60 years, that over 60 years, you've had life, you've had death, you've had birth. And now we'll throw in doctors, nurses, candy stripers, and everybody who makes this hospital operate, who spend their life here, who put all that energy in this building. Guess what? It remains. And that's why I think hospitals are probably one of the most active locations ever. Because think about it this way too, is that I'm at home and something traumatic happens to me. I'm put in an ambulance, I'm brought to the hospital, and I pass away in the hospital. If I was unconscious on the ride here and I pass away, as somebody in the afterlife, I have no idea where I'm at. And if I don't want to believe that I'm passed away, I'm still walking the walls of the hospital. I'm still searching, still looking, and I'm still, And the other thing too is that if I'm a doctor or a nurse, And I've put 30, 40, 50 years in this building, started as they might not want to go away. They might come back to the place that they call home with all that energy and all that stuff that they put in this hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Edo is a really good example. We have a young lady. Her name was, oh my God, I can't think of what her name was. I'm really bad with names. But anyways, it was actually the lady who ran the cardiac care unit at O. And Joanna. And Joanna actually, believe it or not, was at the hospital. She was actually a care nurse. She ran the whole cardiac care unit. And guess what? She actually passed away of a heart attack in O many years later. Well, when she passed away, she was brought to the emergency room at O. All her friends were working on her. And she basically told them that she didn't want to be put on morphine because she wanted to be lucid when she passed away. And she looked at them and she said, as clear as day, I'll be back. She told her friends that she was going to come back to the hospital after she passed away. And after that, a lot of her friends, a lot of the nurses, a lot of the doctors that interacted with her on a regular basis have heard her just really, really kind of unique. And that's what I'm saying in a hospital. These healthcare workers put their whole lives in this building.
Right.
Of course, they want to come back. They want to see what's going on. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's just an amazing location. All hospitals, I think, are my favorite. I think they're pretty much the most active.
There you go.
That was actually the first time I ever actually heard a spirit with just my, we had because I am a nurse, and I worked up on the NICU unit and the pediatric ward. And there was a doctor who was there before I had gotten there that she would say your name, to get your attention. So I was walking around, and then I was the only one in the hallway. It's North Dakota, so there wasn't a lot of people. So I was walking down, and all of a sudden I hear plain as day female voice saying Diana.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was my first actual hearing a spirit. And of course.
And as a nurse, I mean, how many hours do you spend in the hospital?
Yeah.
I mean, and the love and the care and just the energy that you alone put in that hospital is just amazing. I mean, you're on the front line of keeping America healthy. If it wasn't for you, we'd all be dead. I mean, at the end of the day, it's true. I mean, COVID came along, and there were so many nurses and doctors who put their lives on the line daily to make sure that we stayed alive. And Diana, we all owe you a great amount of debt or gratitude. Well, it's true because you guys do, and that's one of the reasons why I love purchasing hospitals, is because I like to keep the legacy alive. I like to tell the stories of the doctors and the nurses like yourself, Diana, who make us healthy. Who, when we come in with a kidney stone, which I've had a couple of times, and the nurse looks at you and says, "What's your choice of drug today? Would you like Darvis? No, what's it called? The one with a D. I can't think of Dilaudid. She says, did you want some Dilaudid? And I said, well, and she says, because I got to take a little bit. She puts it, to inject me. Like, what kidney stones?
Yeah, right.
But what I'm saying is that the nurse made me feel so comfortable and got rid of my pain, and then took me in, and and if it wasn't for you, I'd still be like screaming and yelling with kidney stones. But every day you go to work, nurses and doctors, and they keep America healthy. Like I said, we owe you a lot of gratitude, and that's one of the things my staff and I do is we like to tell the stories of the doctors and nurses who have made OSPH what it is, and what it is as well too, because it's really kind of neat. It's actually kind of neat watching the way that, and you would know this, Diana, the way the medical field has changed over the years. Yeah. I mean, it's changed so dramatically from when this building was open to today, and that's really kind of cool.
Absolutely. Courtney goes, ha ha ha, try having a few babies.
Well, we'll go back to that kidney stone thing, because I will tell you, it's kind of funny, because the lady who actually gave me the Dilaudid, she looked at me and she says, it was funny, she just came off maternity leave, and she said to me, she says, you know what, I've had kidney stones and I've given birth, and she says, I'll give birth any day of the week. The kidney stones, it was awful. It was absolutely awful. So I feel for the birthing, but those kidney stones, I'll tell you.
Good thing I got a big jug of water.
That's why I drink Sprite now, because I couldn't drink anything with caramel in it, because that's where the kidney stones came from.
Oh, wow. I heard Sprite actually can kind of break them up too. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I have no idea.
And Diana's like, no.
All I know is it was kind of funny because I'm a big time Blackhawks fan. And the kidney stones actually happened like 3 or 4 days before the Stanley Cup final. And the doctor had come in and I said, I don't care what you do. I said, but you've got to get me out of here because I've got hockey games to go to. So he brought the biggest IV bag I've ever seen in my entire life and hooked it up. And he says, I'm going to drown you. So, and sure enough, I actually passed this kidney stone the morning of day 1 on the Stanley Cup finals. And I was there that night. So
Nice.
I owe it to the doctor for like whatever he did. And it's kind of funny if anybody had kidney stones because they make you go to the bathroom and you pee into a strainer. And I remember going to the washroom, I was here, the tink. And I'm like, yes!
Yeah.
That's like my cousin. He had a kidney stone and nobody knew what was going on. He had back pain and stomach pain and all this kind of stuff. And the only thing that helped is he took like a warm shower, but he would stay in there for like 20, 30 minutes. And we're like, what are you doing in there? And then finally he was diagnosed with this kidney stone. It took him 6 months to pee it out.
Ooh. It's debilitating. It's awful. I mean, Diana, I know you being a nurse can probably vouch for it. It's the single worst pain I've ever had my entire life. And I've played hockey since I was 4, broke a lot of bones, got a lot of teeth missing. That was probably the worst pain I've ever had my entire life. But once again, thanks to the nursing staff and doctor staff to get me back to the Hawks game. So it's
There you go. We got our priorities in order.
right.
What? Because it shows about 4 minutes. We got to go on break. If you can kind of give somebody like a little cliffhanger, what kind of activity do you see at Old South Pittsburgh?
Well, I'm here probably I'm here. Everybody knows I'm in Chicago for a week, and then I come down here and I manage both hospitals for a week. I'm not going to lie to you. I've had everything happen to me here. Everything from whispers in my ears to like what Diana said. I'll be standing here or sitting here and I'll hear a voice down the hallway. There's been a couple of times where I've been in the building alone at night, like I am now, and heard voices down there, and it's frightening because I'm here alone, and I'm like hearing voices. So I run into the room. I look at the cameras because there's cameras. We have cameras in the hallways to make sure nobody breaks in. Look down the hallway. There's nobody in the building. Like, and the voices are so vivid. I mean, it's like us having a full-blown conversation. Like, you can hear them. I would say the freakiest thing that I've probably ever had happen in the building was I was working in the afternoon, and you know how doctor or hospitals have the PA system.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I heard a doctor get paged, and we've got the speakers throughout the building, but they're not hooked up to anything. We never took them down, but I heard a doctor get paged, and I looked over my shoulder. I'm like, whoa, like it was that cool, and it's happened only once. I've only heard it once, so I don't know if it was that envelope of time or whatever, but that was kind of frightening.
Oh wow, that's.
But kind of going back, 3 minutes. So kind of going back, I'll do this real quick. But kind of going back, I've been a paranormal investigator for about 20 years now. I actually used to visit Old South Pittsburgh before owning it. I have never seen a full body apparition in my life until I stepped foot in this building. And it was kind of funny because we were on the 3rd floor. We were in front of the maternity ward, which is said to have babies crying and activity. A buddy of mine were up there. We kind of looked over our shoulder, saw a nurse walk. I mean, as plain as day. Nurse walked past us. She looked in our eyes, walked away, and just kind of disappeared. And it would have been one thing if I was the only one who saw it, but the buddy who was standing next to me was like, saw the same identical thing.
Oh, wow.
That was the morning I called the owners and said, I've got to have this building. Of course, it didn't go that way. I had to wait a little bit longer. But that and the paranormal was my holy grail of like, I know that something exists beyond us.
Oh,
but
yeah.
what was really cool about it was she stopped and actually looked at me as if to say, get off my floor. Like,
We would.
yeah. And I was like, so my buddy actually ran off, left me on the 3rd floor by myself.
Are we on break now?
We got like 20 seconds, but yeah, we'll go on break. All right, guys. We will be right back. We're gonna go to break and see you in a minute.
Download the new station calendar and never miss another show. To get it is simple and free. Just visit WLTK-DB.com to download or tap the subscribe button on our mobile app. Once the file is in your downloads folder, just double-click it, authorize it to your calendar, and boom, you have every show listed. Not only does it list the shows, but also the links to watch them live. We would like to thank Danny Loosemore for developing this for us and hope you enjoy it as much as we do. Get yours now at WLTK-DB.com or just click subscribe on our mobile app. See you at the shows. Put the power of this station in the palm of your hand and download our mobile app. Visit the App Store, Google Play, and search for WLTK-DB Talk Radio and download the app for free. Listen to past shows, download our station calendar right to yours, and even shop the WLTK-DB Talk Radio mobile app. Now available on the App Store and Google Play. Download yours now.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are back on WLTK-DB Talk Radio with haunted locations in 60 seconds. Diana Henry. Minutes, not seconds.
Close.
Close. I was going to say the show would have ended already with Diana Henry and myself, Nick Sarlo, and we are joined by Ronnie D. of Old South Pittsburg Hospital. That's what we are talking about tonight. And before we went to break, we were talking about some of the haunted experiences that you have had. What is there one experience that just chilled you to the bone, like just frightening?
I would say probably not really.
Okay.
It's kind of weird, but you kind of, and I know this is going to sound really bad, but you kind of come numb to it all. You know, when you're in the building and you're working as much as we do in the building, when you hear something, see something, it's kind of, oh, and you just kind of play it off. I mean, I would say in the old days before owning the building, when we go on location and you'd have something happen, you get kind of the chills and you'd be like, oh, can't believe. Now it's just so normal. And I know that sounds really bad, but I mean, I've got like days worth of stories I could tell you. I mean, and it's just something that it's like, you kind of live with it on a daily basis. And, you know, it's not a normal. Oh, I will tell you. Yes, there was one time that I was here. Okay. So Renee Dykes actually was one of our paranormal investigators. She was with us from the day I bought the building. This was actually kind of cool. So I was here at night. If anybody knows what Old South Pittsburgh looked prior to me, it was terrible. It was in really bad shape. There's mold everywhere. It was when there was a leak, like a water line leak, they would just let it leak. They put a bucket under it. We're trying to fix all that. So anyways, I was here one night and we were in Jim's area. If anybody knows who Jim is, he was one of the residents here prior to the building, or prior to me owning the building. He was kind of the janitor / caretaker of the building. He passed away in the building. But anyway, so I was in Jim's apartment area and we were pulling down the drywall, and it was real moldy in there. So we were abating it. We were getting rid of the drywall, and I was by myself. And it's kind of funny because I'm a huge Nickelback fan, like big time. Like, and everybody's like, oh, them, they're terrible. But anyway, so I was in Jim's area. I was pulling down the drywall and use a acid-based kind of wash to get rid of the mold. So I sprayed it on the wall and I'm jamming a Nickelback and just doing my thing. And all of a sudden I hear, turn that shit off, like that, like really, really loud. And I turned around and I looked. Now remember, the music's on. And I turned around and I looked, and I thought somebody had, one of the volunteers had come in to give me a hand. And I looked over and there's nobody there. So as I'm turning around looking, I hear, get out. And I'm like, this was like within the first 2 months of owning the building. And I was like, whoa. So Renee was very familiar with the building. She worked with the old owners here prior to me owning it. So I called Renee, kind of shaken. And I said, Renee, this is what's going on, blah, blah, blah. She says, it's probably Jim. He's probably pissed off because it's late at night and you're playing Nickelback and he probably doesn't like it. Turn the music down, whatever. So I go back in thinking, and I was a little shaken. I go back into Jim's area. I turn the music off, and I'm scrubbing the walls down again, and I hear, "Get out!" Like again.
Yeah.
Well, this time I left the building. I went out to the front. I called Renee, and I said, "Renee, okay, he did it again. What do I do?" She says, "Well, dumbass, get out." And I was like, okay. So what was really, really freaky is I had to come back in the building to kind of clean up my mess and, lock up. Well, when I walk back in the building, there's water on the floor. And on the floor, you can see footprints that are actually going through the water and around into Jim's room.
Oh, wow.
We called Renee. Well, Renee was still on the phone with me because I was scared to death. So it was, I'm like talking to Renee. I'm like, Renee, look at this. So I actually showed her, and I was like, I sent her pictures, and she's like, oh my, and they were way bigger than my feet. And she's like, you better check to make sure there's nobody in there. Like, Renee, it's just me. I mean, there's no way. So she goes, she looks at me, or she on the phone, she says, you need to lock up and get over here. So I was like, okay, so locked up the door, and I took off. Came back the next day, scrubbed it all down, didn't have any issues with them. But so kind of what we came across was Jim was one of the old caretakers of the building. And once again, there was a lot of things being said about Jim that weren't true. Mm-hmm. And this was in the first couple of months of me owning the building. We didn't even open the building to the public again yet because we were cleaning it out, making it safe so you can come in. So we were kind of thinking that Jim was really PO'd because he was thinking, oh, more people coming in, more rumors, blah, blah, blah. So now that we tell the story about Jim and the truth about Jim, it was actually kind of a really happy spirit that's in the building.
Okay.
But yeah, that was frightening. I mean, I had not only in my ear and like over the sound of the music, but I come back to footprints. Like, it was like a Scooby-Doo movie. I mean, it was like that freaky. Like I was a little shaken. Mm-hmm. And it took me a couple of weeks to come back in the building and do it by myself alone because it was like an aggressive get out. It wasn't like, like a happy-go-lucky, like it's time for you to go home. It was like, get out.
Okay. Has anything like that ever happened to anybody else or just you?
Well, we've had experiences where in the building where there has been some aggressive nature. I know Darla, when Darla was volunteering here, she was on the 3rd floor and she had a run-in with one of the spirits here. I think she got a little punchy with, and the spirit kind of pushed her up against the wall. Like she felt the pressure and kind of up against the wall. And there have been some incidences where, I'm kind of one of those believers in that if you're just a jerk in life, you're a jerk in the afterlife.
Right.
If you push some buttons, you're going to get kind of a little bit of feedback. So, I mean, everybody, whether it's me, you, or Diana, or anybody, you're going to get pushed to the point where you can get aggressive. Mm-hmm. And there has been some aggressive things that have happened in the building. There hasn't been anything really bad, to the point where we're like, using the D word or anything like that.
Right.
But I think primarily it's mostly just spirits that, want to be left alone sometimes. And it was my fault. I was down there blasting Nickelback, and apparently Jim doesn't like Nickelback. I will tell you, if it put CCR on, he's a happy camper. So, and a lot of people don't like Nickelback, and apparently he didn't either. So we don't play that down there anymore for him.
Well, I mean, it is true, like they say, though, because I know we've had good success with music. If you play music in a haunted location, you're more than likely to get some sort of activity. Right. For us, every time we play Prince, we get something. It's always Prince.
Music has a very emotional attachment to everybody. I mean, everybody likes music. It's one of the things that we're all emotionally attached to. And you're right. I think that when you have a spirit or a resident in the building that's hearing something that's bringing their spirits up,
right,
they're going to like and react to that music. So I think that's really kind of cool. And we use that a lot here. I mean, when we're working, we play music a lot and try and do that too, because it lifts the energy.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Like, now it's funny because the only hospital that I've ever been to, like haunted, is the Pollock Hospital in Peoria for tuberculosis and all that kind of stuff. And that's when we really started doing Prince and all that. So we're playing Prince, and all of a sudden we're all looking one way, but the camera captures somebody walk out of a wall, turn and stare at us, and then walk right back into the wall. We're like,
so now is the Pollock Hospital, is that the one they tore down?
No, that was the Bowen building.
The Bowen building was amazing. I had the opportunity of investigating there. That was
I've only got to see the outside of it because at that time we went to Pollock. They wouldn't let anybody else inside of the building, which made sense because it was condemned and all that. So if it fell, for liability and stuff, but it was a really cool building. And I actually have think it's over there, but I still have a piece of rock that somebody grabbed for me of the Bowen building.
You're not supposed to do that. Now, would you bring home?
No.
Nothing is. I mean, the only time I have something, well, I didn't grab it, first of all. So I didn't grab it. So for people watching, that wasn't me. It was somebody who gifted it to me.
He's holding it for a friend.
Yeah,
It's hand-me-down spirit.
I mean, the only thing I have in my house is we have a 8-year-old kid spirit named Jimmy. But that was taken from the Coronado Theater in Rockford. That's where Jimmy is from. But anything else, we've never had any type of experience or anything. So yeah, we definitely, Diana, we need to make a trip to Old South Pittsburgh and your other hospital. Do you want to explain a little bit about the other hospital that you?
Well, let me tell one last really cool
Yeah,
with PH, because this one's actually really, really cool. So Daniel Dorsey is a volunteer of ours, and we turned the water off to the 3rd floor. So because there's a lot of the pipes are cast iron, so they split. So somebody turns the water on, you're basically going to flood the hospital. So
Right.
Daniel, we're actually on the 3rd floor, and if anybody's familiar with the 3rd floor, it's kind of a long corridor, and we're on the other end where Nellie's room is. So we'd be like on the west side of the building, and we couldn't find the water main to shut the water off.
Okay.
So Daniel gets this really clever idea to just kind of verbally say, "Hey, can somebody help us tell us where the water main is?" And Daniel and I looked at each other, but we both heard, "It's over here." And Daniel and I looked at each other like, "No way." So Daniel's like, "Okay, let's go to where we hear the voice." So we walk down to where we hear the voice, and Daniel's a lot taller than me, so he can just reach the ceiling tile and push it back. So he reaches up, pushes the ceiling tile, and lo and behold, there's the water main. So Daniel's like looking at the water main, and he puts the ceiling tile back, so we know how to turn it off now.
Right.
He says, "Thank you," and you hear, "You're welcome," and you hear footsteps leaving from us. And Daniel and I both looked at each other like, that was just a really cool experience.
There you go.
So that was just, and that's why I said, I think the hospital, when they realized what good we were doing for it, we get all those kind of like interactions now when we're working on things, when we're planting stuff out front or just making the building kind of a little bit nicer than it was the day before. I think they appreciate that. So we got a lot of that interaction kind of like that.
Oh, absolutely. Like and from anything that I've seen or anything like that, the hospital looks great. It really looks like it's upkept very, very well. And like you were saying, the spirits, they really, really respect that, because you're doing something that they're used to. So like, for example, cleaning, housekeeping type stuff, that it's something, that they like, it's still their home,
Right.
Technically. For Old South Pittsburgh, what is the most active floor?
I personally like the Tri-City Clinic, which is the oldest part of the building. I think that's the most active. That was where the ER was. That's where the ER waiting room is. That's where the legendary body box is. But that area of the hospital, when the hospital was open, was the most active, just from a hospital point of view. There's a lot of chaos going on in there. We've heard stories of people being put in some of the observation rooms and nurses coming in who were no longer alive, checking on some of the patients. We've heard of doctors making rounds who weren't here, had passed away. So Tri-City is my favorite. I can sit there all night long and just watch. And there's a lot of shadow play. There's a lot of full body apparitions. There's just a lot of energy, a lot of activity in that area. So I think that's my favorite. I know the 3rd floor is very legendary. If you did your research, you looked online and all their stuff, everybody talks about, the tall man on the 3rd floor and then, the children crying and all that up there on the 3rd floor. Honestly, I don't spend much time on the 3rd floor. Personally, I haven't had much experiences other than the nurse, but now the Tri-City Clinic, I go spend time over there and I'm guaranteed to get some activity pretty much every time, I step foot in that hallway. So that's the area of the hospital I like. That's where I spend the most of my time. It's also the area that needs the most work cleaning up. So it goes kind of hand in hand while you're in that area all the time.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
Now, people can book overnight investigations over there. Are people allowed to sleep there?
No. So
Okay.
Tennessee has a really strict rules on being able to sleep in locations. and you have to have a sprinkler system. You have to have this. You have to have that.
Right.
So we don't have those. So that's why we do our generally our investigations are from 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. So you get to a full 10 hours in the building. Usually most teams start to wind down between 2:30 and 4, where they're kind of like exhausted. A lot of them have had the experience. I mean, we've had the last couple of groups in OSPH, I say would leave probably 1:30, 2 o'clock because they got everything they wanted. They had their experiences, and we've had a lot of newbies. There's a lot of newbies coming through, which is really cool.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of newbies in the last 6 months that have come in that, we've got a lot of repeats, but the newbies are neat because they come in and they come in and they've never done this before. And they're kind of apprehensive. They kind of believe, but they kind of don't. And then we kind of exit interview everybody when they leave, how'd you do? What'd you see? And everybody's like, oh my God, this happened. Or, oh my God, that happened. Or like, well, I didn't believe in it until I came here. And I'm like, well, what happened? Well, I saw this or I heard this. And it's really kind of neat. So then we get another booking out of them because they want to come back to verify, what happened. And unfortunately, we all know that when you're paranormal investigating, it's like kind of fishing. One night you could get all this stuff that's happened. You come back the next night, you get a very little, and then you come back the third time and the fish are biting again. So it's kind of all over the place. We try to explain that to them. But the one thing that OSPH does that I think does better than a lot of buildings, this building loves to talk with EVPs. I mean, just loves to talk. We've got people who will come and they'll do some voice recording and they have a really down night. We'll be exit interviewing them. We'll be like, it was kind of, slow. There wasn't a whole lot going on, blah, blah, blah. And then I get a call like 2 days later and they're like, holy cow, is that building active? And I'm like, well, what happened? Well, we are EVPs and we're getting direct responses and there's voices and all that other stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that is kind of one of the things with OSPH is that the walls might be really quiet or the halls might be really quiet. But then when you go back to review, your evidence, people are like, wow. And we've had people, which is really kind of cool, which we don't lock you in here. So if you want to come in and you're doing your 6 to 4 and you want to go grab a bite to eat and come back, well, we've had groups who have done that. They leave voice recorders throughout the building.
Yeah.
You come back and they review their voice recorders and they're hearing doors open and gurneys and voices and all this other stuff. And there's nobody in the building. So it's really, really cool to have that. But that I think was one thing that's really famous about OSPH is that this building talks. I mean, literally will talk.
Definitely, yeah. We definitely need to go there now.
Yeah, right. I'm like, okay.
So now you own another hospital.
We do. We just closed on Old Historic Harriman Hospital. We just purchased it in March. We obtained it in March. Well, actually, we paid for it in March, but we were able to access the building prior to that to clean, to kind of get it ready for investigators to come in and out of. But yeah, that building, I will tell you, from the day we walked in there to now, it's kind of like saying, hold my beer, OSPH. We're going to show you what haunted really is all about. But that building, so kind of the long and short of it, we'll go back. Before I purchased the building, we had contacted the city. We showed interest in the building. Apparently, there was another paranormal group who wanted to buy it, did a deal on a napkin. So we actually did our deal the proper way with a business, what do you call it? On real paper, typed out off the computer, all other stuff. So they were very impressed with what we did. They called South Pittsburgh, wanted to know what kind of group of people we were. I mean, they did a whole check on us.
Yeah.
So we were allowed to go in the building prior to actually purchasing it because they did that check. So there were probably 8 of us. We did an investigation one evening. And I love people from Tennessee, guys. You've got to come down here. There is nobody in the world that are better than Tennesseans. And I will tell you why. So we're walking through the building. We're on the 2nd floor. We're in the OR suites, which I will tell you, the ORs, I could roll a stretcher in there and operate on you tomorrow. That's how clean they are. They've got the lights. They've got all the hookups. It's mint. So anyways, so we're walking through there and one of the girls actually sees a man walk past. How hospital doors have the little glass in them.
Yeah.
He sees a man walk past the glass. Well, the first thing we all thought was somebody broke in. So I'm leading the pack. I turn around and everybody from Tennessee has got a gun drawn. I'm like, I'm totally safe. Look at this. I've got like an army, a militia behind me. Tennesseans, it's awesome. I feel so safe down here. So we locked the girls in a room because, like I said, we thought that we had seen somebody. We chased him around for a little while, couldn't find him, let the girls back out of the room. We're walking, and there he goes again. We all saw him walk by. So this time the girls are like, well, this can't be somebody because we cleared the hall. There wasn't anybody there. We basically, when you go to O on the operating, it's kind of a big circle. You go through the ladies' lockers, the men locker, the hallway, and it's kind of a big circle. We followed this gentleman for about 15 minutes. He kept popping up here and there for a good 15 minutes. Finally, we all saw him walk into a room. And when he walked in that room, we're like, we got him. And at this point in time, once again, because we saw him so much, we were once again not sure if it was a spirit or if it was a human. So behind me, all of my staff has their guns drawn. We walk into the room, and there's no way in or out, and nobody in the room. It was, and I mean, we're talking full body apparition, as clear as the video of the three of us on here right now, and all 8 of us saw him. Like all 8 of us, we could all describe what he was wearing, your facial features, everything. We walked into the room, and there was no way in or out. There's only one doorway. So the group looked at me and said, so you buying the building? And I said, where do I sign the contract?
Yeah, right.
So that was the first night we ever investigated that building. It was off the hook. So now when we're working on the building, we'll see him. He's around all the time. He'll walk up the stairs, and he'll be standing in the staircase looking at you and just kind of disappear. But that building is really, really active. It's 186,000 square feet. So when you're standing in what we call the city block, the ORs are, if I'm facing Roan Street, the ORs are on my left-hand side, and all the way down the right-hand side would be the geriatric wing. You can't see the end of the hallway. If you're standing in the ORs and you're looking all the way down, it goes that long.
Oh, wow.
It is just amazing. It's pretty much built like OSPH, where you pull up to the building, and there's this massive, I think it's a 4-story building in the front. And it's small. It looks like it's this big, really tall. And then you walk in and you get lost. And the building just spreads out from there in the back. But once again, it was a building that was a full-service hospital, had everything in it from birth to death, cancer treatment, pretty much everything, MRI machines, the whole kit and caboodle. But that building is extremely, extremely active. One of the coolest things that's ever happened to me there is that, like I said, now that I've been doing this for so long and owning something, it just comes as second nature. So we had a major motion picture come through. They actually filmed a movie called Grounded there. And it's going to be in Hollywood. It's going to be released, I think, in summer of this year. But so they wanted us to change out LEDs. So I was actually, as a man, you know that little top rung where it says "Do not step"?
Yeah.
I know you've been up there. Come on.
No, I picked people up that were on there. But go ahead.
So, well, I couldn't reach the lights to put the LEDs in. So I'm on that top rung. I'm the only one in the building because my team had gone to go get food for us. And I'm like, I got to get this done. We're under a time frame. They're going, no worries. Well, I'm standing on that top rung, and all of a sudden I feel something grab the back of my calf so hard that I was like, whoa, I almost fell off the ladder. And I hear, be careful. So, well, I turned around thinking that the staff came back, and I turned around and look, and there's nobody there. So I went into the lobby, which is right next to where I was putting things down. I kind of sat down, and you guys know how, like, when you're sitting and when somebody walks by, you feel kind of that energy or that wind chill go by. So I'm sitting there kind of minding my own business, and I feel that go by, and this chair next to me kind of gives me a little squeak, and I hear, glad you're okay. So I got up, and I sat on the front porch, wait for my team to come back. I told everybody what happened, and they're like, no way. It's happened to other of our volunteers when they've been doing things, and somebody will put a hand on their shoulder and say, good job. Or I have a young lady there who's there every day cleaning, but she says that she hears voices all the time talking to her. She gets touched all the time. Somebody will tell her, good job. It's like it's amazing. It's a really cool building.
So, Nick, what you doing next weekend?
Yeah, right.
Come on down.
Well,
I'm down.
once Spirits in the Spring is over with, we'll have some more time.
True.
And for those of you that are coming to Spirits in the Spring, I know some of the people that are watching are. Ronnie D will be there. He does have his own booth. He will be talking about both hospitals on there. And we're really excited. This will actually be the first time that I've met you, Ronnie. We've only talked face to face on video and stuff. I heard a lot about you from Greg and stuff, so I can't wait to meet you and everything. Now, before we end the show, where can people find out a little bit more about Old South and Old Harriman Hospital. And then do you do is there a deal that they can rent both hospitals for like a price or?
We did it when we first opened. Not at this time. We feel our prices are actually really reasonable for what you're getting. So if you do a full overnight investigation over at O, you're getting 186,000 square feet. You and up to 8 friends, so it's 8 total. It's only $850. I mean, for that big of a building, that's a heck of a deal. It's the same time. It's from 6 to 10 or 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. So you get your full 10 hours in there. I mean, it's for the size of the building and the location. It's very, very reasonable. Old South Pittsburgh, we haven't changed our prices. I know a lot of other locations have gone up in price. We're still at the $650. Haven't changed it since we opened, and that's the same thing, 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. You can contact us on Facebook at either I think it's Old South Pittsburg Hospital on Facebook or Old Historic Harriman Hospital on Facebook, and then of course we have a website. The website is osphprc.com or oldhistorichairmanhospital.com, and you can reach us on there. Or you can call me personally at 815-216-5724.
Who are you going to call? Ronnie.
Well, I was going to say, I sound like I'm selling used cars now. Anybody need a car?
Oh, man. No, I mean, we need to go, Diana. We need to get the team together. We'll have Greg do all the wheeling and dealing with you. And then
they're really neat because they're 2 different kind of buildings. Like, we can literally, the new part of the building, we can literally open up tomorrow as a hospital. They left it in a really good shape. The ORs are intact. It's all pretty much intact. Where OSPH has seen its weather. It's more of a haunted location than it is, of a hospital. We're trying really hard to bring her back and make her look, fresh and new. But she's just, it's really neat because O was actually born in 1938. Opened in 1939. So O is actually 20 years older than OSPH. And O started with just a 14 window building up front on Devonia Street. And it grew into this massive, it's just massive. When you stand out there and you look, it's like, holy cow. And you get to investigate all of that. And talking to the doctors and the nurses that worked in there, that building was haunted even long before it closed down. Kind of an amazing stories.
And I was going to say, you also had a couple paranormal TV shows.
We did. We're on Destination Fear at both locations, which everybody who knows Destination Fear, let's get them back on TV. Yes, right? I mean, we're planning real hard for them. I talked to Alex just a couple of days ago. Can't tell you what we talked about, but I talked to Alex. I wished him well. We're doing everything in our power to get him back on. Love those guys. All 4 of them are just amazing people. But we had Destination Fear out there. And then we had Kindred Spirits here as well. And then we had a couple of YouTubers out that we just won't pass on their names because they're kids. And the problem is if I mention their names on your show, their following is usually between 8 and 17 years old. And I get these phone calls at 2 o'clock in the morning going, are you really haunted?
Oh,
because their fan base happens to be just younger kids.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with them, but it was just younger kids, and how younger kids are.
Yeah, absolutely. We're trying our best over here to definitely get Destination Fear back on for season 5, and I love that show. That's why we went to Indiana State Sanatorium too, was because of that.
Right.
Because of that episode, and if we didn't go and we didn't see, we never would have caught our first apparition.
Yeah, we get a lot of people, same thing. Destination Fear is just an amazing show. We did O and OSPH both have got a lot of, people bookings because of them. But, like I said, I met them personally. I wouldn't call them friends, but definitely acquaintances. And they're such good-hearted kids. And they're just amazing people. And they don't have a bad bone in their body. And they're doing this because they enjoy it, not doing it for the, not for the wealth or the money they're just doing it because they really enjoy it. And they need to be back on TV.
Absolutely. I mean, I have maybe a little small thing for Chelsea, but we'll see.
Well, I know she's in Minnesota, and I know if you need your eyes done, you can go up there.
I'll go. I do need my eyes checked again, so we might make that happen. But Ronnie, thank you so much for for joining us tonight on our first episode of Haunted Locations in 60 Minutes with Old South Pittsburgh and Old Historic Harriman Hospital. We need to go out there. That's all I can say right now is just we need to go, and we're really looking forward to talking with you about everything at Spirits in the Spring coming up. So yeah, thank you so much for being on the show. Do you have any questions for us or anything?
Nope. Thanks for having me, though. I really enjoy it. I appreciate it.
Great.
I'm really looking forward to Spirits in the Spring. I can't wait to get up there. So we're gonna have some good old times up there.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be fun, and I bet you anything, as soon as we shut off the camera, something probably is gonna appear behind. All right, Ronnie, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you everybody for stopping by for our first show on WLTK. I'm still getting used to this DB Talk Radio, and we will see you guys next week when we talk about Broadhead Manor. Take care, guys. Thank you.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.